Okay, let's try this again. Have any luck? Here we go. Hopefully people are coming on. Tell me people are on, but it's not telling me who's joined. Hi Anne. Hi Em. Right, we're going to try this again. The plan is Daniel's going to request to come on, and if we have lots of noise again, then what he'll do is he'll disconnect all his headphones. He's found headphones with a lead. He'll disconnect everything, and then he will just go on and talk and not be able to hear anything. And then I'll write down all the questions as planned. And if we can't have like a discussion on here with me asking him the questions, then we'll figure something out for after with that, whether I have to send them over to him and he can type them up with the answers, or I'll do a recording or something with him to post in the group. Hopefully he should be requesting to join time. Right, let's try and add him. I'm just telling him we're good to go. Hi again, Ali. Has anyone else got anything better to do on a Sunday evening than watch us mess about with this? Hopefully not. Or Sunday afternoon for the other side. Hi Jackie, thanks for coming back on. I don't have notification for it. I wonder if I can invite him to it. Send him an invite. Hi Dee. There we go. Right. Okay. He's in. Everyone, please keep your fingers crossed. We want this to work. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. We can hear you nice and clear. Well, I can hear you nice and clear. How is it
Okay.
your end?
So far, it's okay.
Damn Bluetooth. It's Bluetooth. That's the problem. Right. Can anyone just type in the comments to say if they can hear any problems, if there's any noise they can hear, if they can't hear either one of us? But to me, it sounds good. To Daniel, it sounds good. Hurrah, Ant says. So fingers crossed that means we're all good.
Okay,
Only
great.
like half an hour later than what we said, but never mind. You can
I'm
hear us
pro
both, Jackie. Perfect. No noise.
So
I
far,
think
so
we're
good.
good.
Okay, so we were talking about the appeal. The appeal for a murder trial in Georgia goes straight to the Supreme Court. It skips the intermediate appellate courts. And the Supreme Court up there is comprised of 9 judges, and there will be a majority ruling, just as there is in a lower appeal court, and just as there is in our U.S. Supreme Court. I was saying that the fact that his motion for retrial was denied is nothing new. It happens in nearly 100% of cases. For the judge to go ahead and allow the retrial would be him saying there was a mistake made in his trial that he was presiding over and that he didn't take care of it at the time.
No judge is going to admit to that, are they?
Yeah, yeah, very, very rarely, unless they can blame it on somebody else.
Right.
So the appeal that we're doing right now, it can only have stuff off the record, stuff out of the record, stuff that's in the court transcript, stuff that's in motion that's been filed. Anything else will have to be covered later, such as new evidence that you and I are looking at, will have to be covered in a writ afterwards. The length of time that an appeal takes, the average length of time is 2 years. The only thing that will rush that up is public outrage, it being a very public case. Okay, if it's in the media a lot, the judges tend to look at it much quicker.
So that's
I don't,
why having like this group is so important, and people share
absolutely,
everything and
absolutely.
getting his name out there.
Right, and this
Yeah.
is why I spoke to or am in contact with the reporter from the Jacksonville Times Union, who's very willing to talk about the case. He covered it very extensively, and he
Mm.
now happens to work for Brunswick News. So,
Oh,
so he's telling me he's willing, if I want to drive up there, which it's only a 65-minute drive, that
yeah.
he's willing to meet with me.
I think with everything in the media at the moment with Glynn County,
Oh
people are,
gosh.
you know, they want to talk, don't they? And
Oh yeah.
look at
Yeah.
things a bit different now.
Right. Now, unfortunately, really, they should start going back and looking at all her cases a little bit closer.
Mm.
That probably won't happen. The judge, now I've been doing this for 6 years, but me as an entity, as Eye on Innocence, is brand new. I've always just done it on my own, just helping people out, and it started with
Yeah.
a case of someone very close to me 6 years ago. And in that instance, the judge was clearly in the wrong. He ended up, I filed a petition to have him removed from office, and 5 days later he resigned. And by resigning, he avoided the investigation. But since then, I went back and asked the prosecutor, who is Melissa Nelson here, are you going to take a look at all his cases from the past? And
Mm.
her answer was no, we're not going to look at them, but those people can file with the Conviction Integrity Unit if they feel there was something wrong with it. Now, Glynn County, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't have a Conviction Integrity Unit, but
Mm.
Atlanta, I believe, does. So whether that can be submitted over in Atlanta or not,
Okay.
it just depends on are they taking all counties or all of Georgia or just
Yeah.
greater Atlanta.
Okay.
But that part of the appeal, like I said, has to be recorded in court records somewhere. Whatever you're going to be speaking about, you can challenge the theory of the prosecutor in this appeal. Okay, so it doesn't have to be black and white. If there's something that just doesn't fit for his appeal, I'm really looking at the judges can overturn it for lack of evidence supporting the verdict. And so far, that is what I see. I don't see anything that the prosecutor is putting forth that the defense attorneys have not been able to pretty much dismantle. And they don't have to prove the prosecutor wrong. They only have to prove that there is cause for reasonable doubt.
It's just crazy how they didn't like that. They could just all go, yeah, we're 100% sure he's guilty. Not 99.9%, but I'm 100% sure that he's guilty.
Right.
And then make all them comments on the documentary about, oh, I was confused the whole way through. I mean, so many comments on the group have been talking about like the jurors' comments that they made on that documentary, um, going into it and already having him guilty.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy. Like, that's the thing. I suppose it being England County, it being held England County, everyone knew about it. There was no way that one person on that jury hadn't heard about what had happened. One of them says, "Oh, my nan lived down the, she lives down the road from where it happened." Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
lovely.
Right.
And they make some real strong comments on there, don't they?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And then the fact that they didn't try to find Dwayne. Okay. Dwayne
Yeah,
only went by the first name, but Dwayne is another suspect. And that is that can be grounds for appeal. You singled out one person. You didn't look at anybody else. They said, well, all we had was a first name. Well, all you had was a first name and a gang that he probably belonged to. So
yeah,
you probably could have located Dwayne if you had tried.
yeah,
But
yeah,
as soon as you got to where you couldn't find the other person that was with Dwayne that made the threat that said we're going to kill the whole family, you just dropped the investigation because you
Yeah.
couldn't find him.
And that tip was given like within a couple of weeks of it happening, yet they did nothing about that until it came to just before the trial. I think it was like when they were doing jury selection, and the
Yes.
defence
Yep.
found out about it and went out and interviewed the man that had phoned up with the tip. And that's when they look into it and they go onto their
Right.
computer. Andy Anderson, no, okay, he was in prison at the time of it. That's the end of it.
Yep.
But he was
Yep.
also living in New Hope. His
Oh,
address at that time of the trial
right.
was New Hope. So like there's so many links, and he's in a gang. And you know, I don't know a lot about gangs, but I'm pretty sure that if you're in prison and you're part of a gang, you've only got to say the word and people out on the street
Exactly.
are exactly what you
Exactly.
want.
Yes.
So this was the guy and fit the evidence to him. Yeah, that's exactly right, Dee. They did. They all the evidence that they had, it was kind of like they went, okay, right, well, this will make him look innocent. This will make him look guilty. So let's get rid of everything that makes him look innocent. And anything that we could use that could go, oh, look, okay, well, that's a bit, you know, we'll just use all of that. So that's exactly, you're right, Dee, how they did it.
Yes, and sometimes that's absolutely intentional. You know, they have the person they want and that's it. And sometimes it's just confirmation bias is what it's called. And they have an idea in their head and they're not really doing it on purpose, but they are kind of ignoring what doesn't fit the story that they've already got going on in their mind.
Yeah, yeah. And they had him down as it, like, you know, within about an hour and a half, I think it
Oh, I
was.
think they had him down by the time their first interview was done at the trailer.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. First
I
time
mean,
speaking.
they were questioning him about his previous day already.
Yeah, and if
If you
you're,
were
yeah,
if
why would they need to know about his previous day when they
exactly
just turned up his phone 999, sorry, 911? Why, you know, why
right,
would you need to know at that
if
point what his actions were the previous day?
yes, if you're a witness, they only care about what you witnessed.
Yep,
Now, if you're a suspect, then they want to know quite a bit more. So yeah, they kind of did treat him just like a suspect, and in the transcripts you can see that, and the defense attorney continually brings that up. You
yeah.
know, and the police, Stalvey said he never pulled his weapon. Uh, Yet, I believe it was No Hilly
Said that
said
was,
said we
yeah,
both had our weapons drawn when we came up there.
yeah.
So
And the fact that they were also kind of questioning him while he was under the influence, you
under
know,
the
they
influence
knew that
and
he'd taken.
traumatized.
So you've got the mixture of being on drugs and the trauma of what he's just found, and yet they believe that's okay to interview him
Right.
about it. And there's other people there, yet he was the only one taken down to the police station. They're all apparently witnesses, you
Right.
know, they're all there, but he was the only one that was taken to the police station. He was the only one that was questioned about anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. At that point, they'd already decided that that was him.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one. So I'm just checking comments as we go along. Yeah, he was. Yeah, Joy, he was. He completely cooperated with everything. Yes, he took the gun out and he put it in the car. But then when the police said, "Are there any weapons?" he said, "Yep, there's that inside, and I've put one in the trunk of the car." No point did he go, "Oh no, no, no," and then you know, say he didn't know nothing about that gun in the car. He completely complied with absolutely everything. At no point did he put up a fight or anything. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He should Lloyd up straight away and said nothing. Too late. I don't know what point the lawyer got involved. I have to find that out and let everyone know what, you know, once he got to the station, how long it was after getting there that he actually got a lawyer. Yeah, I'll find that out. Okay. So with the appeals,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to talk a bit about like what the stages are? So the first one is obviously the Supreme Court. what,
Right.
what happens. So, from now to it getting to the Supreme Court, if you know what I mean, what has to be done.
Well, whoever his attorney is, and I'm kind of hoping he's not too far ahead on this because we want to get our input in on it, and we
Yeah.
don't know. For all I know, he's been working on the appeal for the last 3 years, and just waiting for that motion for retrial to be denied.
Hmm.
I'm hoping he has barely started on it, but on the other hand, that too extends the timeout that it's going to take to get it turned in, submitted, and completed. But meanwhile, he'll be doing the same thing. We hope that I'm doing. More than likely, he'll be having a paralegal go through it and pick out anything that's wrong. Now, like in the first appeal that I worked, it's not uncommon. Well, it is uncommon because people don't do it, but it's not uncommon for, say, you and I to go through these transcripts and find something that the attorney did not.
Hmm.
The first appeal that I did, I just read it. I was paying for the guy's lawyer, so his attorney gave me a set of transcripts. And when he was writing up his appeal, he sent me his appeal brief, and I sent back and said, well, wait, I've got 6 more points of appeal of my own. And I sent those to him, and they were all good points of appeal, so they were added to the appeal. So
Yeah.
what I'm doing, what you're doing, we're going to pick it apart. I sent you a list of the things that I've gotten so far that could be
I'm not.
argued in
I'm
this.
not going to kind of say what was on them, but
No, no, that's fine.
what I will just say is, from what Daniel has already pulled out from that, I've then passed that on to Guy, and Guy was like a mix of emotions about it, wasn't he? Happy,
Yeah,
sad.
yeah.
He's amazed that you found this stuff for him, and he's obviously grateful for everything you're doing. Um, but that, I just wanted to kind of touch on that because it's just showing that what you are doing is actually making a difference to his case. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Make sure I'm not missing any questions. Yep. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, so that's going to take up, you know, all of my time will be spent just going and recombing, and I'll start going through the transcripts, and then on the bottom I'll make a note. And like I said, when I'll do it, and it's going to be a map basically of the entire trial. And at the bottom of each page, I'll put whatever the high points, the highlights of that page were. For instance, Officer Stalvey saying that no guns were drawn, that he didn't treat him as a suspect. Okay, that's on, say, let's just say page 4,397. And then I'll keep reading. And then when I get to page 6,000, No Hilly comes in and said, we both had our guns drawn. Okay,
Yeah.
so now I'm going to put those two together. And when I put the case map together, the trial map, it will be side by side so that an attorney can look, here's what was said and here's how it was debunked by the defense. And then he can go immediately to the page and lines that it's on in the trial transcripts and transfer that into the appeal brief. Now, once the
And the
appeal,
reason for doing this, sorry, the reason for doing this, just so everyone knows why Daniel's doing it, is one, to make sure that the attorney doesn't miss something, because like you said, they can miss things. So just to give Guy the best fighting chance for his appeal. And two, so that when it does go to the judges, the appeal judges, it's going to make it easier for them to look at, and it's going to be literally staring them in the face what the issues are, isn't it? So
right,
it's just
right.
really all to give him a
And
more.
I will send you, you said you've never seen an appeal, never read one? I
No.
will try and send you Kevin's appeal brief. And the appeal brief is done. Now, this is the only time that the defense will have the last word, okay?
Yeah.
Because the appeal brief is going to be submitted, and then it is going to go over to the prosecutor's office, to the DA, and they are going to allowed to respond. They'll be allowed to respond, and then the defense will be allowed a response. So in the trial, whereas the prosecution gets the first and last word, can you hear him?
The dog wants the last word now.
Exactly. Where the prosecutor gets the first and last word, they get to make opening statements first, and then they'll make closing arguments first, but then the defense will speak, and then the prosecution gets an opportunity to rebut what the defense just said. And that's a sad way of doing it. It really should be reversed. If a person is truly presumed innocent, then
Yeah.
they should have the last
I
word at
like
trial.
I sort of like everyone to know about what you put on your Facebook, because a lot of people in here might not be friends with you on Facebook, but your idea about the jury not actually being in the courtroom at the time of the
Yes.
trial.
Yeah.
And that makes so much sense because, you know, the jury, as soon as Guy walked in there, the jury were making comments about him looking remorseful, or, you know, when things were
Right.
showing up on screen, his reaction to them. You know, one of them said he smirked. That's a load of crap. I'm sorry, but it is. You know, they were continuously through the trial looking at him and how he reacts to things. And that nobody is going to act the same
Right.
during anything. Everyone has their
Right.
own reactions to absolutely
And
everything, no matter
you,
what it is. And because he wasn't
exactly.
acting the way that they would act, that made him guilty in their eyes.
Right. And I think you might have seen the post that I had on the trial in Texas where the woman died in her bathtub. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
when they convicted the husband of actually murdering her, and at the end they asked the jury, "Well, how much weight did you give to the evidence?" And they, on a scale of 1 to 10, and the juror
Was
said a
this on
1.
was this on Reasonable Doubt by any chance? The
It could
TV
have
show?
been. It could have
Because
been.
that's my next one to watch, is about a
Oh,
woman dying in the bathtub with her
yeah.
husband.
They asked on a scale of 1 to 10 how much weight did you give the evidence in your guilty verdict, and they said 1. And they said, okay, and how much did you give his demeanor? And they said 8. So they were more concerned about the way he was acting 2 years after his wife's death than what the evidence actually was or wasn't.
That's just crazy, isn't it? That
Absolutely. Absolutely.
they
So,
are going on.
and a prosecutor or a defense attorney, when you're not supposed to be asking questions just to elicit emotion, but it happens. It happens, and it happens intentionally.
The
They
the
want,
prosecutor definitely did it, because one of the things where I literally want to throw something very heavy at my is when um, John B. Johnson, he almost, in a way, he takes the mick out of Guy when he says about, I think it might be in his closing statement, when he says about the 911 call, and he says what Guy says, but he does it in this real like the way he says it is, it doesn't come across good. You know, he doesn't just say what he says, he puts on this voice as he says it. And
right.
I'm like, you're literally there taking the mick out of him. You
Mm-hmm.
are there doing that, and how is
Yes.
that allowed?
Yeah. And those are small points that can be made in the appeal, about trying to elicit emotions. And you hope to get enough in the appeal brief, enough points of appeal that the judges look at it, that they
Yeah.
look at it really close. Unfortunately, there is a thing called the per curiam decision, which they don't write an opinion. They just either say that the appeal was either affirmed, denied, or reversed. And that's the worst thing that can happen, because you have nothing to, okay, I want to restructure my appeal. You have nothing that you can do that with if they don't give an opinion.
Mm.
Okay? But they are allowed to just say no opinion, we're just affirming it, or denying it.
Hopefully not one of them.
No. So the more stuff you get on there, you're trying to drive them to make them want to respond to something in that brief.
Yeah. Yeah. So once that's been given to them, then they've looked at it and they make their decision. If the decision is they deny it, what's the next step?
Well, if it's denied, it's been either affirmed or reversed. They'll probably get a second chance to correct whatever error it was that caused it to be denied. Okay, it doesn't
Okay.
mean they have not affirmed the lower court's decision, which that's what we're hoping doesn't happen. We don't want them affirming the conviction of the lower court. We'd like to see reversed. So if it's affirmed, then you wait and you see if there's an opinion on it, or if they just affirm it per curiam with no opinion. If there's an opinion there to work with, then you can restructure for the next part of the process. You can start working on your writs with new evidence, whatever you can find. And we're really hoping to find some new evidence. And I'm hoping to go up there to Brunswick myself and talk to that reporter. There's things that
Yeah.
maybe he heard and couldn't verify, so he didn't report them.
The
And
reporters were all shocked with the verdict when you
yeah, no
see it,
doubt.
and they're all like, "What? You know, guilty?" They were completely shocked by what the verdict was. So
Well, you had one juror, like you said, that came in saying the first thing I noticed first time I saw him was he wasn't showing any remorse. Well, you're supposed to be presuming him innocent, so you shouldn't even be looking for remorse.
yeah,
Okay, and then you have the two confused jurors. That alone should be grounds for retrial. However, them being confused is not in the court records because they said that in the interview with BBC. So
hmm
that would have to be something that would
so would
maybe
that
be
go
worked
as
into a
a
writ.
writ as new
Yes,
evidence?
yeah.
That would go on. Yeah,
I mean, somebody could try and put it in there in the appeal and document that
it's like kind
video
of
as,
sneaking it in there in a way, or
yeah, exactly, or and move that into it and use the video as evidence of that, as proof of it. And I don't know, we just don't get enough, or Guy doesn't get enough communication from his current attorney,
no.
which is also not uncommon. They know that they've only got the court records to work with. So having a whole lot of contact and being a public defender,
That's
God only
one.
knows how many cases he's got in front of him to be able to contact people. But he should be sending out a regular communication one way or another saying,
I
hey,
think once
we're
you've sent
working on
three
it.
letters to your lawyer and you've heard nothing, then you're a bit like, okay, come on, give me
Right,
something.
right.
I'm just making sure I write down all the questions. Um, with that first appeal and it goes to the Supreme Court,
Hmm.
how much sort of with the judges in the judge in Glyn County,
He'll
how
have
much kind
no,
of interaction do the two courts have? You know, will they?
he should
Just
have none.
yeah, okay,
Okay. Now, here in Florida, we do it by, we'll have a case in Duval County, and then the appeals are handled by an entirely different district because there's not supposed to be any kind of interaction between them. It should be separate. There should be no indication of impropriety. There should be
yeah,
no links that anybody could ever
yeah,
bring up and say, well, this judge, went to the county fair with this other judge last year who handled the appeal. So they
yeah,
do that by spreading it out far away.
yeah. Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to answer to that part. Okay, so it's been, let's just say it's been denied, and you said they might get another chance to kind of go back for it. Once it's a definite from that Supreme Court, it's a no, 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 you're not having a new trial. What would the next stage be?
Then the next stage is going to be the writs. Okay, we try to find something that's outside of the court records. And these are, as these don't have to be on record anywhere. And this can lead to an evidentiary hearing where they'll bring people in to talk about the evidence that they've got in the writ. Okay, a good example, again, I'm going to go back to Kevin's case here. One of the things that happened in that was there was a particular juror on the jury, in the jury pool, that I had told his attorney, you need to pull that guy from the jury pool. He shouldn't be on this jury. Okay, Kevin agreed. They left him on the jury. His attorney said, well, I kind of like him. So he left him on the jury. Well, he was the cause, now we know, of Kevin's conviction. He became the the jury foreman in that trial, and he had some very severe feelings towards Kevin. Okay,
Mm,
and there was no way. And 5 years later, we're finally going to bring that juror back into court, in spite of the four motions that the prosecutors filed to keep him out of court. he's going to be brought in, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. And I see Kevin's felony being removed from his record, if not a total reversal of the conviction. And that fact that he had been asked not to put that juror on the jury and to strike him, and he was only juror striking him, can go into a writ. It's not on evidence in there. It's not in the record. That's why it's new evidence.
Okay. Just writing down that question has just popped up.
Sure.
Okay, so we found some new evidence. That's not me saying we found new evidence. I'm just kind of throwing things. This is what could happen. So let's just say we've done an amazing job. We found this new evidence and it's going in for the writ. Who does that go to?
That's going to go back to the Supreme Court.
So the same judges that turned down the appeal. Okay.
Yeah. And they're much better at looking at things than an appellate court is. So getting to the Supreme Court is a big deal. And I'm not talking about the U.S. U.S. Supreme Court too, but we're not at that point.
No.
So he's got an excellent chance of having a case looked at that goes there, at least. And sadly, that is not always the case in appellate courts. Appellate courts are notorious for just going with whatever the prosecutor said. Where that's why I'm saying you have to have something in there that's really going to interest them and make them look at it really close.
And the more we can get his name out into the public, into the media,
oh,
things
definitely.
Like that, it's going to be, okay, this is the case everyone's talking about. This is the one that involves Jackie Johnson. This is the one that involves such and such, such and such. They're going to know all of that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so them judges, they look at the writ that's been filed and then they say, yes. So say they look at that new evidence and then they would just decide, yes, that's enough evidence to grant a new trial, or no, it's not enough evidence. So that would be the two choices they could make.
They can do that. They can do that, or they can have an evidentiary hearing where the prosecution and the defense will come in there, new evidence and the reasons that the defense believes he should get a new trial or a reversal of conviction can be brought in.
Okay. So say they say, no, we're still not giving you a new trial or anything. You've still got to stay where you are. What's the next stage?
Well, you can continue filing writs, but you're going to have to continue finding new evidence.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can file another writ and another writ, but there's got to be something new to each one.
Okay, so once that appeal's been turned down by the Supreme Court, is there another court that you would then file another appeal to higher up?
Well, above the Supreme Court is just the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay,
yeah.
So if the Georgia Supreme Court turns it down, then it can move on to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Okay, and how many judges look at it there?
There's 9. There's 9 judges there as well.
Okay, and they would all look at it.
Yes.
Okay, and then they say no. Then the next stage, is there another appeal that you can put in to anybody?
And not without something new. Again, not without a new evidence of some sort and a new evidentiary hearing for them to come look at it. Usually, once the Supreme Court of the United States turns it down, that's pretty much the end of it, unless you can absolutely come up with something new.
And that is when you would then be able to contact the Innocence Project and say, well, we're at the end of the process. Because a lot of people say, have you spoken to the Innocence Project? Have you spoken to the Innocence Project? They don't get involved until all the appeals have been exhausted.
Until the appeal has been exhausted and you no longer have a lawyer. If you already have a lawyer, the Innocence Project won't step on their toes. They stay out of it until that lawyer is no longer a part of it.
Okay. So really, what we're hoping for is the fact that it's now, this appeal that's going in is away from Glynn County, away from them judges, away from them prosecutors, the DA, everything. It's completely neutral at the Supreme Court where it's going to. and
Right.
that
It's supposed to
would
be.
hopefully be enough to give him a good enough chance. Um, that, you know, especially if this appeal is going to be amazing, and you know, everything that we're doing to make sure it's the best that it can be. What we're
Right.
hoping for is that they make the decision and say, yes, we're granting you a new trial. Once they've been given the appeal, once that's been filed, and then the defence has their say, the prosecutor has their say, the defence has their say again. How long do the judges have to make a decision on what they're going to do?
They're unlimited. They can, I've seen appeals law. When Kevin started his appeal, it was a 2 year average. We're going on 5 years. I know somebody else whose appeal took 8 years. They don't have a time frame to decide.
And having him in the media and things like that would be what would speed it up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Public outrage. That was the first thing that I was
Yeah.
told is you want to get somebody out of prison and you want to get their case looked at, there has to be some public outrage.
I just kind of like, you know, with the group, I mean, it's grown so quickly. Like, guys, just over the moon with how many people are already in the group. And it's such an active group as well. I love that. You know, everyone's commenting in there and answering questions for each other and things like that. It's absolutely brilliant. I just kind of want to point out that, like, the importance of having this group. You know, it's not just there so that we can say, this is the update with Guy, this is what's happening now. It's a way of everyone getting to know Guy
Mm-hmm.
so that they can see who it is that they're actually supporting.
Right.
But also, you know, the bigger this group gets, the more it's going to help when it comes to his appeal. You know,
Yes.
because the more people in this group, the more people are going to get to know Guy and who he is, and actually read all this stuff that's in the group and be like, okay, I didn't actually realise that. I didn't realise that. Okay, yeah, I do believe he's innocent. And, you know, oh, come into this group. So making that group grow is all what's going to help go towards his appeal.
Right. And we'll be careful. Like that was a good idea that you said, I'm not gonna speak about what's on the list that I sent you.
Mm,
Because as I told you, I know a woman whose son is in prison, and the prosecutor on that case very slyly became a member of that group. So he didn't use his name. He made a fake account. But
mm,
somehow behind the scenes, he knew everything that was going on because it was being discussed in her group. So that's
right.
something you want to be careful of. They're 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 slick. They'll same thing with phone calls.
Yeah.
My phone calls to one of my clients was brought up in court. You know, they threatened to arrest me, and luckily I knew the statutes. I knew I had followed the rule. They were just trying to scare me into keeping my nose out of it and stop getting in the way. When they went after him, he was a poor kid with no family. They had no
Mm,
idea who I was or where I was coming from, but I was coming pretty hard, and so they were using everything, trying to twist everything that was said to make it look like we were doing something
yeah.
illegal, and that's still floating around in the appellate system because there wasn't anything illegal, and now the
Yeah.
appellate judges are like, yeah, well, telling the prosecutor, no, we're not going to listen to you anymore. You've
Mm.
already worn this out. There was nothing wrong done here. 5 years later, so
So I guess, yeah, that's like everyone in the group needs to know, you know, there's only so much information that we can share in there, and that's only done to protect Guy.
hmm
And that's also why, like, you know, when people share things into other groups, I think you'll agree with me, Daniel, it's quite important to try and bring them back. You know, people, if you share something in another group and then people start asking you questions about it, bring them, try and get them into Guy's group, because then the admins are able to monitor what's being asked, what's being said, and make sure that, you know, the right information is actually being passed out. Because you've only got to turn around and go, you know, somebody says something that's completely false, and then that goes on to someone else, to someone else, to someone else, and it's like a game of Chinese whispers, which could actually end up hurting his
right,
case.
right.
So it's always best to try and just bring everyone back into that group, and everything kind of stays in there and is answered in that group.
Yes.
I'm just going to ask you Bridget's question, just because it's there and we're talking about it. She says, what other ways can we promote this besides just sharing the group and his story? I feel like if we create videos and have people listen and watch things, it's concrete and more influential towards his case.
What other ways? Well, there was the way that I suggested to you. If you do a search and you come up with a blog that they were speaking of Guy's case, and there is a ton of those blogs out there.
I'm already onto that. Yeah.
Log in, start an account, and make a comment. Everybody that has ever made a comment will be updated that, hey, there's a new comment on Guy Hines' case. And then hopefully they'll go back and start the conversation again. There were a lot of ways that I've used. I mean, I've put out flyers on cars, you know. I had t-shirts made with one of my clients' image on it, and then a little blurb and where they could find it, the story on Facebook. Go ahead.
She said, I agree with the bringing people back to the group, but they need to see something or watch or hear something to catch them and let them say, hey, something is not right. But I agree with that, but there is only so much information that you can put into other groups and even into Guy's group. You know, you can't put the whole case file into a different group. You know, Guy and I have put together the picture that's got him on it, and it's got the hashtags on it that we want to use. You know, and eventually people will know his name. They'll know that name, the more it's spoken about. So, like, I'm just trying to think, you know, like, there is only so much that you can tell them to get them interested, isn't there? You know, like, I think it's more in the way that you word something.
Oh, definitely.
To get them back into the group.
You know, something that would probably gain my attention, but I look at it more of a, you know, I'm not a big fan of prosecutors. So if I was looking for something that would get my attention, it would be something about the prosecutor, like you've done with these cases, you know, where you're posting each one, but maybe I would post, say, that picture of Guy that you just started recently using, and then hashtag Jackie Johnson being sued by whatever that officer's name was that Handy, whatever his name was that was on your post that article, and then another hashtag, you know, the case that's going on right now with the jogger. These all fell under her. You know, these are all under her watch, and then, so why not Guy?
Yeah.
Why should we believe her in Guy's case if clearly she's been involved in a culture of corruption
10 years
and
ago,
deceit?
Just checking. Ali said, I think Bridget means something more like videos, posters, not specific case info. Yeah, so we've got the new picture of Guy. So if everyone's sharing that picture, that's got the hashtags on it as well. Videos. Ali, I think it was you that we were chatting about this the other day, about putting together like a support video for Guy. So, you know, where everyone's done like these comments for him for the picture, and then I've sent that on to him, having some kind of video with them, like comments, you know, people holding up signs saying, you know, hashtag free Guy Hines Jr., hashtag time to be heard, that kind of thing, and having it on a video. We've spoken about doing something like that before, but it's got to be like selling him or something you see. Yeah, the something you see is the picture that we've put together with Guy. You know, that we want that to kind of almost like a logo in a way. That picture is now kind of Guy's logo, isn't it? If we can use that as Guy's logo and people recognise that, people are in all different groups and they'll see it again and again and again. Does that make sense? More eye-catching, advertising him, flyers. I think that's a good question to ask people. Radio, yeah, it was Ali. I was going to do We have to sell him, essentially show people what's happening. I think the video idea more eye-catching for sure and easier to share. Yeah, I mean, the picture, if everyone's sharing the picture every single day, you know, that it's going to get recognised, and then the more we can share that, the more chance we've got of, you know, somebody from the media picking up on that and going, okay, right, let's have a look into this, and okay, well, let's put that on in our newspaper, you know, the picture of the Free Guy Hines Jr. and the hashtags on it and things. You know, what would you suggest, Daniel, without hurting his case? That's the main
Right.
thing. We're doing this without
Really, I look at
his case.
you know, I see so many of these cases and so many little videos for them, and the ones that seem to work are the ones where people have got, you know, they're not flashcards, I guess they are, but a larger size card, and they're carrying like 10 of them, and they keep posting a new point. You know, they'll flip over the card or bring out the
Oh,
card.
okay, yeah.
Okay, those seem to work. People seem to sit through those and read each card.
Do you know, actually, you're saying that. I watched one in a group the other day.
See, and you
Yeah.
watched the whole
But
thing,
it's
didn't
funny,
you?
you might have like some music playing or something like
Right,
that. And you
exactly.
would go in, so you might hold up a bit of paper and it would say, you'd hold up the first bit and it might have like the date on it, his name on it, you know, this is what a brief bit of what happened. This is another brief bit of what happened.
Exactly, exactly.
This is another bit. Then this happened 10 years later, blah, blah, blah. I like that idea. Everyone, if everyone likes that idea and seen it, perhaps hit the love button, and then I know, and we can get that done. I can record something like that.
Right, I know even myself, when I see
No,
those, I'll watch.
nobody's loving that idea. No one's loving it. I love it. I'm going
The
to
other
take that
ones,
guy anyway, so I like that one.
the other ones that people seem to watch, and you probably get with his grandmother and his brother, videos that are starting out with baby pictures and teen pictures and adolescent
There is one of
photos.
them, yeah.
Right.
We have got one of them, but it's in. Oh, yeah, we've got some love on that idea now. Um, it's in the other group, but it is on his YouTube channel. But
Okay.
I mean, it's there. It's on YouTube. I guess because
Did
I
it get a
don't.
lot of reaction?
It's not had that many views.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's not had many views. Um, but I do like this idea of the flip cards because, like you said, I've seen that quite a lot recently.
Yeah, it's almost mesmerizing. You almost can't, you
Yeah,
have to wait to see the next card. You have to wait.
yeah. Especially if you've got some nice music in the background as well or something, or do you know what
Now,
I mean? But I'm
does
going to email Fry about that one.
is there a Twitter account?
Yes, but I've
Okay.
got 8 followers on it.
You got 8 followers. Okay, well, I'll jump in there and
Instagram's going
follow.
better, but
I'll follow. I'll jump in there and follow, and then if you can get somebody, I don't, if you know any real Twitter users that have 3,000 followers, get them to get in there, and all they've got to do is hit the share button, and their 3,000 followers will have it, and so forth and so on.
okay. So anyone that's listening that's got Twitter, it's the Guy's Voice group, not the other group of that whoever it is that's. I don't know if you've seen it, Daniel. Have you? Where somebody's created a Twitter account in Guy's name, and they literally for the past 5 years or something, they post almost every day, and some days they're posting like 10 times.
Oh, and it's all negative, ridiculous. Is that the one
The
that's?
stuff they're putting on there. I mean, one, they can't spell. Two, they put information that like
Yeah, I've seen it. I noticed he has no likes on anything. He does have followers, but he has
yeah,
no likes on any of that stuff, no shares on any, no retweets.
no.
Um,
I have tried to get it shut down, but it's not easy,
yeah,
fortunately. But if we can push our one out there a bit more, then I don't know a lot about Twitter. I'm okay with Facebook and Instagram, but Twitter's not something I've ever really used. So if
right.
anyone wants to give me a crash course on Twitter, let me know. That'd be good. Yeah, Jackie said she's seen it. It's stupid. Yeah, you can't even spell on it. It's the most ridiculous thing going. We're going to get a hashtag when Jody talks to Guy. Yeah, we've got the hashtag now. The hashtag is time to be heard, hashtag Guy's voice, and hashtag free Guy Hines Jr. They're the 3 hashtags to put on everything. They're on the picture. They're the three. Guys picked them. They're the three
Now,
that
the
we're
good
going
thing
to use.
about Twitter is if you start an account, it's very easy to follow people. Very rarely will you find a private account that you can't follow. I think pretty much they're almost all open public accounts. So, for instance, when I started Eye on Innocence, I was easily able to go to all the Innocence Project's Twitters and just follow. Certain prosecutors, like the woman that I campaigned for, I could get right on there, and then everything I share goes to all of those pages. So you could literally follow 50,000 and with the push of a button, send out Guy's Voice to 50,000
Okay.
Twitterers.
Wow, that's good. That sounds like a good idea. Okay, say those one more time. Okay, so it's hashtag time to be heard, hashtag Guy's Voice, and hashtag free Guy Hines Jr. So they're the three that, if everyone's using the same ones, then they're going to get picked up on more. And these are ones that it's not just me going, okay, let's just have these. These are ones that I've spoken to Guy about. He's picked them, and that's what he wants to be. They're the ones that he wants to use. They're the ones that are now on the photo as well. He's seen that picture that's been I've put together, and that's one he wants to use. So the more that we can kind of promote the same thing, the more it's going to get picked up on. Did you get it that time, Bridget? Free that we're using? Hopefully you did. If not, it is on the picture. If not, though. Okay, so we've got the flashcards. Any other things that you've seen that work quite well? I know you said about like the baby photos and things like that, so we've got a video of that. So if I can perhaps, I might just ask Tyler, because he should be good. Glad you got them. Tyler should be able to just be the one that can say, yeah, just use the video, and then we can bring it over to the group and use that one as well and try and promote that one a bit more. Anything else? Like on Netflix, I've seen that. Don't know if anyone else has seen it. It's called Dream Killer. Have you seen that one? Ryan
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yep.
His dad. I've sent them messages. I've sent his dad messages on Instagram. I'm like, you're so good. Any tips, kind of thing. He drove around, didn't he? He had his face all over it. He had his car wrapped in it and everything like
Yep.
that. And he was going around literally just handing out flyers to everyone just to get them to know his name, and that made such a difference to it, didn't it?
Yeah,
And they
I've
want to
actually
get Guy's face on their car. Drive
I've
around.
actually been considering putting up a little kiosk in my front yard on the sidewalk, because I have so many people walking by, walking
Oh,
their
okay.
dogs, teenagers going to school, and then just inside it, over here we use them mostly for realtor signs. If you want to look at a house, you pull up to this kiosk and there's a sheet of paper you can take that tells you all about the house, and putting wrongful conviction cases in that, just
Wow.
so that people are walking by can yank one down. Most people don't really exist that, or don't really understand it. The
Yeah.
number of people that are wrongfully convicted, just the estimate by law professionals themselves, meaning, judges, prosecutors, police chiefs, and defense attorneys, they all agreed in a Ohio State University study that there's probably at any given time 140,000 innocent people behind bars. Okay,
And that
and
just in America, just in the
yes,
USA.
just in America.
That's
So that's
crazy.
and then that number is derived from, actually, they say 10,000 people per year are probably wrongfully convicted. But since the wrongfully convicted, an average stay in prison for them is 14 years, you take 10,000 times 14 is 140,000. And then you just say, okay, well, that means that at any period in time, there's likely to be 140,000 of them behind bars.
Which also means there's also 140,000 people walking the streets that are
That,
murderers, or
right, right.
well,
But
more
that's,
actually, because if you've got cases like Guy's where it's more than one person
yeah,
serving time for
yeah,
it,
yeah.
but yet there's at least three people that are likely to have done it, and they're
Mm-hmm.
still in the street. So for a lot of them, some of them cases, there could be more than one person that's
Oh,
actually
absolutely.
walking the streets. I'll go ahead and post it. So for people in the group, at the moment, I think the best way of doing it to kind of get his name out there is to share the photo that we've put together with the use the hashtags, use it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Like you said, adding in the hashtags about Jackie Johnson, you know, any hashtags that are going to link Guy to them cases that are going on in the media at the moment. Even I suppose even things like hashtag corrupt Glynn County would, you know, people are going to spot.
Hashtag Brunswick juror
Yeah,
or Brunswick, Georgia. People are going to look at
yeah.
that and say,
People
oh
are going to
God,
spot
what's
that and
going on
go,
there now?
yeah, yeah. So by using them hashtags, okay. And then I will talk to Guy about putting the flip cards together and find out about getting hold of the video. Well, it's on YouTube, but I just want to make sure we've got permission to kind of put it into Guy's group. Just ask
Right.
Guy, really. No, it should be his photos. Right, shall I go through and ask you some of the questions that have been asked so far?
Sure.
Okay, right. So I need to find out how long before the lawyer turned up. How long before the police turned up? So after Guy calling 911, how long until the police turned up? It was, I think 8:30 they got there, didn't they? Didn't he call them at like 8:16? I think it was. The call was
Yeah, it
logged,
was not very long at all.
and they were there by 8:30. I can't remember the
Right.
exact time, but it was quick. How many appeals? I think we've kind of covered that, haven't we? How many appeals?
Right. And the number of appeals you got, there's a absolute difference between the number of appeals he will get because there were life sentences and the number of appeals that he would have gotten if he had been given the death penalty. Okay. There are actually much more. You get many more opportunities if you've been convicted of a capital crime and sentenced to death. And this is the reason why people are always complaining about people getting, you know, living on death row for 10 or 20 years. First of all, I wouldn't change anything about it because
Mm,
there's been, you know, I don't know what the number is now, 167, 168 people that have been
right.
exonerated, proven innocent right from death row. You know, and one of those people was saved from the executioner's chair by 5 days. 5 days prior to him being executed, he was exonerated. So when people complain about the long time that people are living in prison while awaiting death, I wouldn't change a thing about that.
No.
You know, there's people that had they been limited to say a 5 or a 10 years before the execution, they'd be dead,
Yeah.
and they were found innocent after spending 15 years. You know,
Mm.
but yeah, so he's going to get the one direct appeal unless it's denied and they have to rework it. Then it'll be the same appeal, but they'll tweak it and add and remove or do whatever it is that the Supreme Court
And that will go
says
back to the
needs to be
Supreme Court
changed.
again.
Right. Then that will be it for the actual appeals. But this is all the appeal process. So the writs is not considered the appeal, but they can be filed in. I mean, they're still, all they are is basically saying something was wrong or we found something new.
Yeah. So that first appeal that goes in, they grant it and say, yep, we're going to give you a new trial. Any new evidence that's found, can that be brought up in a new trial?
Yes, they'll probably be before the trial. They'll probably grant an evidentiary hearing. Okay. And at that point, the attorneys will all come in from both sides again. May or may not be the same attorneys. I probably guess not in Guy's case. And they can try to get in there with the amount of time they'll give you to argue your case orally before the judges is 15 minutes.
15 minutes,
Okay.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's not
some
a
of
whole
that.
lot of time to cram as much as you can in
No.
there and get it said. And each side will get one opportunity for that.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and it wouldn't be the same. There's no chance that it would be the same prosecutors. It would
No, there.
a new trial be held? Would they hold it in Glyn County, or would it be out of Glyn County?
That would have to be that'd be a decision by whatever judge. Remember, when you change the venue, it doesn't usually you're going to keep the same judge, not Scarlett.
No.
Scarlett should not be
Scarlett's
on
done.
this.
Anyone that wants to know, he won't now be
Yeah,
involved in Guy's case
yeah.
whatsoever at all.
So they can move it. However, probably now they would have a better argument for
Do
not moving it than back then. Back then, it definitely should have been moved.
yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone in all of Georgia that didn't have an opinion on that case already, and North Florida for that matter.
yeah,
I'm not in Georgia. I'm in Florida, and I'd heard about the case back then. I didn't go deep into it, but I had heard about it. I knew what was
yeah,
going on. They would probably. I would hope they would move it from Glenn County, but there's no telling.
no.
This late after the first trial if they would move it or not.
Okay. Right, what other questions? Right. Will they test all the evidence again? So during a new
No,
trial,
no, they'll
then what evidence is actually left to test? Because the paper got
exactly
dragged, didn't it?
right. We know that
Evidence
they
got lost.
destroyed some of the evidence. Oh wait, his the prosecutor is very was very upset about the use of term they destroyed, but okay,
Yeah,
some of their evidence disintegrated since
yeah,
although if I looked at it I'd say, well, this has been destroyed, but he hated that term
yeah.
because it looked intentional, which who knows.
Mm.
I wouldn't put it past him, but that I'm definitely, and I would say that should be part of his appeal, is that piece of evidence should never have really been used
Yeah.
because it was destroyed. And there's nothing. This is probably in a newspaper article somewhere, but the fact that they took that piece of evidence, they put it in chemicals, and it disintegrated, and then the judge still allowed it to be presented in court, but only with what the prosecutors had seen, and the defense attorneys never got to actually look at that piece of evidence. Should have been disallowed.
Bridget said, can they get repercussions for dissolving or losing evidence?
No, now they can, but they're not going to.
No.
This was an error by the GBI forensic specialists, and there was an order to not destroy any of the evidence and not to test anything that would cause destruction. However, according to the testimony, the GBI didn't have that menu. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation didn't have that memo. And they didn't test knowing that it was going to destroy it either.
Mm,
It was some, it's paper and they're putting it in liquid chemicals 4 times and it fell to pieces.
mad. So, if new evidence was found, would they be able to test that?
Yes.
I'm sure they're long gone by now. I'm just like with the nunchucks and the hammer. Say by some miraculous discovery, somebody turns around and goes, right, okay, I know where they are. And they're
Yeah.
found, hidden under someone's desk somewhere or in a store cupboard. It's
Yeah.
possible. It's
Oh, it's
possible.
happened. It's
But
happened.
yeah, if
You know,
uh, if they were to miraculously reappear, um, can they then be brought into the new trial and tested? So all
yes.
new evidence. So can they test the old evidence and can they test can new evidence be
Yes. Now
brought in?
there's now with DNA testing, of course, there's a lot of things that are going to degrade the DNA and make it unusable. Uh, Rain, high temperatures, extreme temperatures, that can ruin the DNA. You hope that if they do find it, it is in a desk, or it is under somebody's closet. There's been evidence that's been found decades later in the judge's closet. It was evidence that was presented at trial.
Maybe in the trunk of what's his name's car, along with where he put Guy's clothes. You never know.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've lost track of whose car was whose because there's everybody touched this stuff. Stalvey and No
Yeah,
Hilly. Everybody was involved. Owens had a lot to do with it. Throwing
yeah.
all the clothes
One
in
that,
one bag.
yeah,
You know.
Michael Owens was the one that picked it up from the jail, and it was
Hmm.
in his trunk for 24 hours. Why would he need to keep hold of it for that long?
Yeah, I have no idea.
And it just doesn't make sense. Not at all. Can they exhume the bodies for fingerprints and DNA?
No, like I said, the DNA and the fingerprints aren't going to be available to use after this long. The only thing, if they wanted to look at some of the injuries, they might exhume the bodies for that, but everything else is going to be pretty much shot by now. I don't think
Yeah,
you're going to get any DNA. Any DNA that was there is going to have now uh, mass amounts of the body's DNA as it decomposes.
yeah. Okay. Um, so with like evidence that was in there before, like say for example, the shorts, the outer shorts that had blood on them, would they just, if they had a new trial, would they just use the testing that was done in the first trial,
Yes,
or would they then
yes.
have to pull out the shorts
No,
and
no,
retest?
they're going to use the same test results.
They're just right. Okay. Okay, I think that covers that. Light sound fingernails. Yep, we covered that bit. Um, time frame for all appeals to be done by. We kind of covered that a little bit, but
Right.
there's
It's an average 2 years for the appeal, but it can take however long it takes until it's done. And this was a big case, an 8-day trial. When I
mm,
say it took us 2 years for Kevin's trial was 2.5 hours long. That was it. So, and it still took
that's
two
a bit
years to
different.
get, yeah, to get the response back. So yeah, there's no look at a minimum of 2 years unless there is enough outrage created
And
that
that's what we need to do.
right. And I mean, drive them nuts. Send the Supreme Court a letter and 1,000 emails, and be like, oh, I just want to get this one over with. But
Yeah,
you don't want to harass them so bad that they're just like affirmed
yeah.
and send it out.
That's
They've
it.
got
It's
it.
that difference between doing harm and doing good, making sure that what we're doing isn't going to harm his case in
Right.
any way whatsoever.
Exactly.
Um, so if there's things that anyone wants to do to kind of try and, I don't want to use the word promote Guy, but try and get his name out there, that we haven't already said about doing. So like using the photo that we've put together, once
Yeah,
we've got these
something.
things, I think perhaps if you've got a new idea that anybody wants to do, if they can bring it to one of the admins in the group, and then we will just check that with Guy. And then, everything that I'm doing, I'm checking with Guy and he's getting the final decision on it. So the same with, I think, everyone else out there. If we can just, any new ideas before anyone kind of goes, okay, I'm going to print off 5,000 flyers and go and give them out in, outside
You know,
the or something like that. We'll just check that with before.
something that's really relatively inexpensive to do, but it does cost something. But for yours, I did with one of my cases, I did buttons, a button for the shirt. But then another
Is that
one
a
that was,
badge? Is that a badge in the
yeah,
UK?
yeah, it just it, it but one of the other things I did was refrigerator magnets because they were super cheap, and
Okay.
but it was if people took them home and stuck them on their refrigerator, it was something that they were looking at every day, three
So
times a
it could
day.
be so just something like, for example, the photo that we've put together with the hashtags on it. You
Yeah,
have that printed out as, like you say, as
yeah,
magnets or
yeah.
buttons
I
slash
had
badges.
stickers made. Yeah, there was all kinds of things that you can that you can do. But you try to make it something useful that people will keep around, right? That they're
Yeah.
they're going to
Yeah, rather
actually
than
use.
a flyer or a leaflet that can just get crumpled up and put in the bin, trodden on and
Exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
Is there, it's not a question that anyone's asked, but just worth saying about anything that people can do that can hurt his case?
That any people can do that can hurt his
Yeah,
case?
just the general public, people in the group. Are there things that
No.
they can do that could hurt his case, that could hurt his appeal when it comes to it?
Oh, well, one,
Do you see what I mean?
yeah, I think I know what you mean. There's not really anything that they could do. I would say, if you live in the Brunswick area and you know the people involved in this case, don't try to go talk to them. Don't try to get any information out of them, because if they were then later found to be useful in the trial, the prosecution would have the fact that somebody spoke to them on.
Any witnesses that were in the original trial, or anybody that could be called as a potential witness in a new trial, don't
Right.
talk to them.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, don't call them, don't email them if you know who they are.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think there's any other way that somebody on the outside could.
And it's with like the fundraising, because people say about the fundraising quite a lot, like, can we start a GoFundMe page and things like that. And that's something we're looking at, ways around doing it,
Right.
because if we start any kind of fundraising in Guy's name, then he won't have his public defender anymore. If we was to start fundraising for a new attorney, then we don't have the money yet then to give him a new attorney, so he's then left with no attorney, basically. So like with the GoFundMe page and things, it is something that we're trying to work a way around if we can, even if it's like to go towards the costs of anything to do with his case, marketing, anything like that. We just want to make sure we do it in a way that isn't going to have any impact negatively on Guy.
Right.
I think that's all the questions that's come up. Has anyone else got any other questions, or is there anything else you wanted to cover, Daniel, on anything?
No, I think that about covers it at this point.
What
I
about
hope.
a change? What's change.org? Is that the
Oh, change.org petitions.
petition? There
Uh,
was there was one. Yeah, the one people petition. Yeah, people sign petitions and share. There was one that was in his name, done quite a while ago, but I think that ran out. I think when I looked at that a few months back, I think it had ended. So maybe that's something then that we could look at
Yep, you could
doing a
start a
new
new
one.
petition. You could start a new petitioning the Supreme Court. If there's a deadline, make sure you give it a year from now. When you want that petition to end, because you don't want it to. Go ahead.
Is that something you can help with putting together then? A good
Yeah,
petition.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do a petition.
Okay. I'll chat to Guy about that one later as well then, and go through
Sure.
that with him, and then we've got you to help get one. If he gets free, can he sue for wrongful conviction? No.
If he gets free, he has to be certified innocent, certified actually innocent. Okay, and he can fight to do that. But the state of Georgia is a state that does not compensate for wrongful conviction.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to turn around and sue the state, and you're going to have to be proven actually innocent. So say they just reversed the conviction at this point. The Supreme Court looks at it and they say, yeah, there was enough evidence, let him go.
He's not actually technically then not guilty if that happened. Do you mean?
And that it would depend on what they're ruling, how they word their ruling. Trying to think of a really good example of one that's not actually innocent.
Do you mean like if they got him to take the Alfred plea or something like that?
If he took the Alfred plea, he would not be
He'd
entitled
never
to any
be not
compensation
guilty.
whatsoever.
No.
Same thing as if he had taken a plea deal, they are also pretty much, in most states, they're not eligible for compensation. They
Yeah.
contributed to their own guilty verdicts, so they don't
Yeah.
figure they should get anything. And the
Yeah.
alpha plea is the same way.
Yeah.
You're saying you're innocent, but the state might have enough to convict you, so
Which is
you're
what the West Memphis Free did, didn't they? They all took
exactly,
that.
yeah, yeah.
I think because it had gone on for so long, and then
Understandably,
I think with that, I think they only got them to take that so that they didn't have to reopen the case and go back to investigating it.
I think they did that just so that partially that, but mostly because they knew if they got sued by the state in the West Memphis Threes case, that would have been a lot of money the state would have had to put forth.
Mm,
I
yeah,
saw Liz, I don't remember her last name on one of the pages, but you've had some talks with
yep,
her. That
yep, yep.
one of the cities has,
Mela maybe or something like that.
yeah, I don't remember her
I
name, but
know who you mean.
she posted an article that an insurance company has come. There was a wrongful conviction. They sued the police department in the city. The city turned around and said, nope, the insurance company is going to pay this because it says any damages done to us. So the city's going to, then the insurance company took it to court and the insurance company lost. So they're going to have to pay that former inmate all the money that he's owed for his wrongful conviction. That's a step in the right direction.
Mm,
It's not going to come out of the prosecutor's pocket, but that
yeah,
state's, hopefully, that state, first, they're going to lose their insurance anyway, but a new insurance policy is going to cost them, probably millions of dollars a year. And that's almost, the state's now going to take notice to
yeah,
wrongful convictions if it's
yeah,
going to cost them, if they're going to be liable for it.
yeah,
So that's a step in the right direction. I believe that's the only thing that will ever reduce wrongful convictions by a noticeable amount is if we start putting the burden of cost on the prosecutors and the police departments that thus far have been granted immunity by the Supreme Court. The
mm,
only way we're going to stop it is take that immunity away and hold them
yeah.
accountable for what they do.
Mm. There was no more questions. Tanya just says, "Thank you, Daniel. You're awesome."
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so the plan going forward then is we're going to talk to Guy about making the flip card things. I think that'd be amazing to do. I love that idea. Use the hashtags on anything, even if you're just doing a general post on your news feed, like putting up a picture of your dinner, for example, what some people do. Just stick the hashtag on there. People are
Yeah.
going to look at it, and
Cute
then
cat
use the
video.
pardon,
Do a
your
cute
cat
cat
video.
video with the hashtag. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just stick the hashtag. The hashtag everywhere. There's 3 of them to use. Um, and then if you are posting about Guy's case in other groups, try and use that photo so that it gets recognised. The more, I can't remember how many times. There's so many times that you've got to see something to actually notice it, isn't there? Is it
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
14 times or something? You've got to see something 14 times to actually notice it. Something like that. I'm sure I read that somewhere. So yeah, just keep posting that picture and use the other hashtags like hashtag Glyn County's corrupt, hashtag Brunswick's going under. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Anything that's going to make people look at it and go, oh, is that linked to what's been going on in the news? And then I'll talk to Guy about starting a new petition, and then that's something we can get together as well. But at the moment, just keep sharing everything in the group, share it into other groups, share the photo, share this live, everything. And I mean, how many members are in the group right now? Let's have a look. There are, just make sure there's no requests waiting to come in. So in 10 days, 10 days, we've got 443 in the group. That's
Nice. Very good.
crazy. That's
Very
amazing.
good.
That is so good. That's brilliant. That is so good. Just checking there. Can you guys post things in the where more feeds because the media has already recognised Glynn County and is uncovering some of the stuff there. Yeah, Bridget, I do post guys things in there. Quite a few people have actually come over to Guys Group from We Run group. I've read that too, and yeah, I think it's about 14 times. Thanks, Jody and Daniel. Oh my God, 443. Yes, great group. If there's no more questions, then I think we're done. And hopefully now everyone understands the appeal process a little bit. Make sure you guys post there as well. Get the media.
You bet.
Get the media involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
If you come up with questions later on, absolutely.
Yeah.
If they come up with questions later on, they can post them to your group and
yeah. Daniel's
tag
in the
me in
group,
it, and I'll come in and answer
so
it.
just tag Daniel in any that you ask in the group that, like, especially if they're related to the appeal, and then you'll get the notification about them then and won't miss them, which would be good. But thank you so much for everything you're doing. It's amazing, and
you bet. You're very welcome
for taking the time to come in and do this live. We got there in the end, luckily. I'm glad
next time we'll start like
do it any other way.
right.
It worked out well in the end. Yeah, so if everyone keeps sharing this, then it will make a difference. Like it said, time to be heard. Let's make some noise.
Very good.
And that's it. Can we do this again? What do you mean?
Absolutely.
What, another live with us two? We like the new duo.
Yeah.
Well, with a property act. When's the next one? You're both amazing. Thank you. Thank you to everyone that's been on and asked questions and joined in the live. Well, what do you want another one about? What could we do another one about? Promoting? I click on it, promoting, like.
Yeah, they would have to come up with something different. I've still got, more things that I need to go through. I said I don't want to. What's in public record is not something that we can't talk about. So what is in the transcripts is not something we can't talk about. If somebody wants to talk about the case or they have questions on the case as it was presented, we just can't talk about our thoughts on what's going to be put into the appeal. Because we don't want to give the prosecutor a heads up on what they need to be ready to fight. But I have no problem discussing what's already been, from the first trial.
Yeah.
If that's
maybe about what's going on, new ways to promote guy. I might even as well talk to Tyler and see if I can get Tyler to come on. I don't know. Can you only have, how many people can you have on a live?
I have no idea.
Does anybody know? If anyone knows, post for me how many people you can have, like, in this. Like, could we add another person into it? Because if we could, like, we could have just a general question and answer session on Guy's case, and if we can get Tyler in onto it as well, then Tyler can answer some questions that we are not so sure on, and Tyler obviously will know the answer to them. But I might have a look. Does it let me? I don't know if it allows me to add anybody else. Only 2 people. Thank you, Connie. Okay, so maybe do one with, like, you and Tyler, or something, or me and Tyler. We can work ways around that then. But I think it'd be great to get Tyler to come on, and obviously it might take a while for that because he works a lot. So it's kind of finding the right time to get him on. But I'm sure me and you can come up with something else to come and do another.
Absolutely. Live. You bet.
We'll think of something. Post your suggestions in the group.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll give it a go. Lovely. Right. Thank you, everybody, for coming on and being patient with us at the start of it as well. We got there in the end. So, right. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Well, you're only in 5 o'clock now, aren't you? So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back.
I'm on American time, so it's all right. I shouldn't be, but I am. Right, okay, thank you, everybody. Speak to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.